I was sitting at my desk reviewing client proposals when my phone lit up with Aaron's name. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. I answered hesitantly. After brief small talk, he dropped the bombshell. My brother needed $50,000 for a house down payment. My mind flashed back to 5 years ago when I was homeless, and he refused to let me sleep on his couch for even one night. The irony was almost laughable. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss stories about family karma and the surprising ways life comes full circle. Growing up, Aaron and I were never on equal footing. With a 5-year age gap between us, I watched from the beginning how differently our parents treated us. While I had to earn my allowance through chores and responsibility, Aaron received twice as much just for existing. My parents justified this by saying he was too young to understand the value of work, but that excuse somehow lasted well into his teenage years. Our home in suburban Michigan was comfortable but not extravagant. Dad worked as an engineering manager at an automotive company, and Mom taught at the local elementary school. We never went without necessities, but luxuries had to be earned. At least that was the rule for me. When I turned 16, I got my first job bagging groceries at the local supermarket. My parents insisted I save 80% of my earnings for college and car insurance. Meanwhile, Aaron, then 11, continued receiving his allowance with zero expectations attached. This pattern became our normal. By high school, the disparity was even more obvious. I paid for my own clothes, phone bills, and social activities. For my senior prom, I worked extra shifts to rent a tuxedo and buy tickets. Aaron, as a freshman, had his expenses covered without question. When he complained about not having the latest video game system, our parents bought it the following weekend. When I needed new tires for the used car I had purchased myself, I was told to budget better. After graduating high school, I moved out immediately. I found a small apartment with 2 roommates, enrolled in community college, and worked full-time at an electronics store. Every semester was a financial struggle, but I managed by taking night classes and working overtime. I visited home for holidays and occasional weekends, watching Aaron cruise through his teenage years, with every advantage I never had. When Aaron graduated high school 5 years later, our parents threw him a lavish party and presented him with a new car. They then paid his full tuition to a private university, covered his rent for an apartment near campus, and gave him a monthly allowance that exceeded my first full-time salary. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Despite this imbalance, I remained a supportive brother. When Aaron needed help with college applications, I spent hours reviewing his essays. When he struggled with calculus, I tutored him over video calls after my workday ended. When he wanted an internship at a marketing firm, I connected him with a client from my electronics store who owed me a favor. I never expected anything in return. He was my little brother, and I wanted him to succeed. Our relationship was fundamentally one-sided. I called to check on him regularly. He only called when he needed something. I remembered his birthday with thoughtful gifts. He occasionally sent a text message for mine. I helped him move between apartments 3 times. He was always too busy when I needed assistance. Everything changed when our mother was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer when I was 25. The disease progressed rapidly, and within 8 months she was gone. Her death affected our family in different ways. I grieved openly, visiting her grave weekly, keeping her photographs on my desk. Dad retreated into his work, staying at the office later each night. Aaron seemed to move on quickly, rarely mentioning her after the funeral. Just 13 months after Mom's funeral, Dad announced he was remarrying. His new fiancée, Stephanie, was 15 years his junior and worked in his company's human resources department. They had apparently grown close during his extended work hours after Mom's death. From our first meeting, Stephanie and I had an uneasy relationship. She seemed uncomfortable with my memories of Mom and changed the subject whenever I mentioned her. With Aaron, she was different, entirely warm, accommodating, even maternal. She took him shopping, paid for expensive meals, and regularly invited him to their home. My invitations were less frequent and felt obligatory. Dad's relationship with me grew increasingly distant. Before a year had passed with his new wife, he had adopted her perspective on almost everything, including his children. Whenever I visited, conversations felt strained. When Aaron visited, the house filled with laughter. The pattern of favoritism that had defined our childhood had evolved into something more overt and painful under Stephanie's influence. My life imploded when I was 27. The tech startup where I had been working for 2 years underwent a massive restructuring, and my entire department was eliminated. With only 2 weeks, severance pay, and the job market flooded with similar applicants, I found myself in a precarious financial position. Simultaneously, my personal life collapsed. Jennifer, my girlfriend of 4 years, had been acting distant for months. I discovered why when I borrowed her laptop to search for jobs and found intimate messages between her and her coworker dating back 6 months. When confronted, she admitted to the affair and moved out that weekend, leaving me emotionally devastated and suddenly responsible for the full rent on our apartment. I applied for dozens of jobs daily but received few responses. The tech industry was experiencing a downturn, and my specific skills in project management were suddenly less valuable. I picked up gig work driving for delivery services and took odd jobs when possible, but it wasn't enough. My savings, which had never been substantial, dwindled rapidly. 3 months after losing my job, I could no longer afford my rent. My landlord, initially understanding, finally served me with an eviction notice. I packed my essential belongings into my 10-year-old Honda Civic and surrendered my apartment keys. That night, I slept in my car in a Walmart parking lot, unable to process how quickly my life had unraveled. The next morning, I swallowed my pride and called my father. I explained my situation, not asking for money but hoping for temporary shelter. His response still echoes in my mind. "Hubert, you're 32 years old. It's time you learn to handle your own problems. We raised you to be independent. Dad is helping Aaron with graduate school right now. We can't support everyone." I sat in stunned silence before thanking him politely and ending the call. I had never asked my family for financial support before. Not for college, not for my first apartment, not for anything. The one time I needed help, I was treated like a burden. With nowhere else to turn, I drove to Aaron's apartment complex across town. He was living in a 1-bedroom unit that our father subsidized while he completed his master's degree in business administration. I called from the parking lot and he reluctantly agreed to come down. We sat in my car surrounded by my packed belongings. I explained my situation clearly, that I needed a temporary place to stay for a few weeks while I continued my job search. I offered to sleep on his couch, pay for groceries, and help with chores. Aaron shifted uncomfortably, looking anywhere but at me. "I'm sorry, man, but I've got Tiffany living with me now," he said, referring to his girlfriend of 3 months. "The place is tiny and she's really particular about her space. Plus, I can't just have someone crashing on the couch when I'm trying to focus on my thesis." I reminded him of the times I had helped him throughout his life, including co-signing for this very apartment when his credit was insufficient. His response was a shrug and a mumbled, "That's different. Besides, it's not like you'll be homeless. You'll figure something out." That night began 3 months of genuine homelessness. I alternated between sleeping in my car and staying at a downtown shelter when the weather turned too cold. I showered at a gym, using a monthly membership that cost less than a single night's motel stay. I ate at soup kitchens and food pantries, standing in lines with people whose stories were often far more tragic than mine. During those months, I checked my phone daily, hoping for a call from Aaron or my father. Perhaps they would reconsider or at least check if I was safe. The call never came. Not on my birthday, not during a week-long winter storm that left me huddled in the shelter, not even during Christmas, which I spent alone in my car reading a paperback by flashlight. The emotional toll was even worse than the physical discomfort. I battled depression that manifested as both emotional numbness and sudden overwhelming despair. I questioned every life decision, wondering how someone with an education and work experience could fall so far so quickly. Most painfully, I grappled with the knowledge that my own family considered me disposable. My turning point came on a Tuesday in February. I was sitting in the common area of the downtown shelter applying for jobs on my rapidly deteriorating laptop when a staff member named Thomas approached me. Unlike most of the overworked shelter employees, Thomas took time to talk with residents individually. He had noticed my routine of leaving early, each morning dressed in my one remaining business casual outfit to use library computers for job searches. "Do you have a background in technology?" he asked after introducing himself. When I explained my experience, his eyes lit up. He worked with a nonprofit that provided job placement services, and he had a lead on an entry-level technical support position that needed immediate filling. The job paid barely above minimum wage, but it came with consistent hours and, most importantly, was in my field. I interviewed the following day, emphasizing my willingness to work hard and grow with the company. They offered me the position on the spot, and I accepted with profound gratitude. Thomas also connected me with a rooming house where I could rent a single furnished room for less than half the cost of a standard apartment. The accommodations were basic: a twin bed, a desk, and shared bathroom and kitchen facilities, but it was clean and safe. For the first time in months, I had a door I could close, and a bed that wasn't a car seat or shelter cot. When they offered me the position with double my previous salary, I accepted with quiet pride rather than celebration. Experience had taught me that security could be fragile. This new role became the foundation of my rebuilding. I continued my frugal lifestyle despite the salary increase, saving aggressively, while continuing my education through company training programs and online courses. Between the two jobs, I worked nearly 70 hours weekly, but each paycheck brought me closer to stability. I lived on a strict budget, preparing simple meals in the shared kitchen and treating laundry day as my one luxury. After 6 months of this routine, I applied for a junior developer position at a mid-sized software company. The interview process was rigorous, but my combination of customer service experience and self-taught coding skills impressed the hiring manager. The emotional toll was even worse than the physical discomfort. I battled depression that manifested as both emotional numbness and sudden overwhelming despair. I questioned every life decision, wondering how someone with an education and work experience could fall so far so quickly. Most painfully, I grappled with the knowledge that my own family considered me disposable. My turning point came on a Tuesday in February. My performance reviews were consistently excellent, and after 18 months, I was promoted to a development team lead. With my improved financial situation, I moved from the rooming house to a modest one-bedroom apartment. I furnished it gradually, with second-hand finds and occasional new purchases. For the first time since my homelessness, I began to feel secure enough to plan beyond immediate survival. My social life slowly rekindled as well. I joined a hiking group that met weekly, forming friendships with people who knew nothing of my past struggles. Through a colleague, I met Lisa, a graphic designer with a quiet confidence and wry sense of humor. Our relationship developed naturally, without the pressure or expectation that had characterized my time with Jennifer. When I finally shared my experience with homelessness, Lisa listened without judgment. She asked thoughtful questions about how it had changed my perspective rather than expressing pity. Her response confirmed what I already suspected, that she was someone I could trust with my vulnerabilities. As my personal and professional life stabilized, I maintained minimal contact with my family. I called my father on holidays and his birthday, keeping conversations brief and impersonal. He never asked about my living situation or career, and I never volunteered the information. I sent Aaron birthday text messages that received one-word acknowledgments. Neither of them knew where I lived or what I did for work. The distance was both painful and protective. 3 years after my homeless period, an opportunity arose that would transform my trajectory completely. A senior developer at my company approached me about joining him in a startup venture focused on cybersecurity solutions for small businesses. He had secured initial funding but needed a partner with both technical skills and customer service background. My unique experience made me ideal for the role. Taking the risk required careful consideration. I would need to reduce my hours at my stable job to part-time while building the startup. After discussing the decision with Lisa, who had become my fiancée, I accepted the partnership with specific conditions about equity and workload. The startup struggled initially, as most do. I packed my essential belongings into my 10-year-old Honda Civic and surrendered my apartment keys. That night, I slept in my car in a Walmart parking lot, unable to process how quickly my life had unraveled. The next morning, I swallowed my pride and called my father. I explained my situation, not asking for money but hoping for temporary shelter. His response still echoes in my mind. "Hubert, you're 32 years old. It's time you learned to handle your own problems." When they offered me the position with double my previous salary, I accepted with quiet pride rather than celebration. Experience had taught me that security could be fragile. This new role became the foundation of my rebuilding. I continued my frugal lifestyle despite the salary increase, saving aggressively, while continuing my education through company training programs and online courses. I was sitting in the common area of the downtown shelter applying for jobs on my rapidly deteriorating laptop when a staff member named Thomas approached me. Unlike most of the overworked shelter employees, Thomas took time to talk with residents individually. He had noticed my routine of leaving early, each morning dressed in my one remaining business casual outfit to use library computers for job searches. "Do you have a background in technology?" he asked after introducing himself. He mentioned his own job at a marketing firm, his girlfriend Melanie, of 3 years, and their recent vacation to Italy. I waited patiently for him to reveal the real purpose of his call. Finally, after 15 minutes of superficial conversation, he cleared his throat. "So the reason I called. Melanie and I are looking to buy a house. We've found the perfect place in Lakeside Estates. I recognize the neighborhood, an exclusive development with homes starting at 7 figures." Aaron continued explaining how they were pre-approved for a mortgage but needed additional funds for the down payment. "The bank wants 20% down and we're about 50,000 short," he said casually, as though discussing lunch options. "I know we haven't been super close lately, but I was hoping you might be able to help us out. It's a solid investment and the family connection would make it easier than dealing with banks for the additional loan. We pivoted our business model twice before finding our market niche. The work was exhausting but deeply satisfying. 18 months after launch, we secured a significant investment from a venture capital firm, impressed by our growth metrics. 6 months after that, we hired our 5th employee and moved from a shared workspace to our own small office. I maintained my composure, asking practical questions about their income, current savings, and repayment plans. Aaron provided vague answers, emphasizing the property's future appreciation potential rather than concrete financial details. "We should meet in person to discuss this," I suggested, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "Coffee this weekend," Aaron agreed enthusiastically, clearly interpreting my willingness to meet as a sign of agreement. This wasn't about revenge, but about establishing boundaries and perhaps, if possible, honesty. Saturday arrived quickly. I reached the coffee shop early, selecting a quiet corner table with privacy for what would likely be an uncomfortable conversation. Aaron arrived 15 minutes late, dressed in designer casual wear and emanating confidence. After ordering expensive specialty drinks, Aaron launched into an enthusiastic description of the house: 5 bedrooms, a home theater, pool, and proximity to exclusive schools for their future children. He showed me photos on his phone, swiping through images of marble countertops and vaulted ceiling. "It's the perfect starter home," he said without irony, though the property was more luxurious than anything I would ever consider necessary. "Melanie has her heart set on it." When he finally paused, I asked, "How are things otherwise? How's your financial situation generally?" Aaron shrugged. "We're doing great, both making good money. We just took that trip to Europe I mentioned, and I just got the new Tesla last month." "So you've been spending significantly while knowing you wanted to buy a house." I kept my tone neutral, genuinely curious about his reasoning. "You have to live right," he replied with a laugh. "Besides, the housing opportunity just came up recently." I nodded slowly, then decided direct approach was necessary. "Aaron, do you remember 5 years ago when I called you because I was homeless?" His expression flickered momentarily between discomfort and dismissal. "That was different," he said defensively. "You were just between apartments. Besides, my place was tiny in Tiffany. Had I been homeless as you put it then, or just between apartments?" I interrupted, keeping my voice calm. Aaron shifted in his seat. "Look, that was a complicated time. I was finishing my thesis, and you know how Dad and Stephanie are. They probably would have cut my support if I had let you stay. I was in a tough position. I was sleeping in my car, and at homeless shelters for 3 months, I stated plainly. Not a single member of my family called to check if I was alive." Aaron looked genuinely surprised. "I didn't know it was that bad. You should have said something." "I did. Explicitly. I told you exactly how desperate my situation was." I took a sip of my coffee, gathering my thoughts. "Aaron, I'm not bringing this up to make you feel guilty. I'm bringing it up because it relates directly to your request today." I explained how I'd rebuilt my life from nothing: the years of 70-hour work weeks, the careful saving, the gradual restoration of my security and self-respect. I shared more about my current business than I'd ever told any family member, not as a boast but as context. "So yes," I said finally, "I do have the financial ability to lend you $50,000, but I won't be doing that." Aaron's expression shifted from confidence to confusion to indignation in seconds. "Seriously? You're successful now, but won't help your own brother. Is this some kind of payback?" "No, it's not payback," I replied calmly. "This is about responsibility. You want a luxury home you can't afford while making financial choices that undermine your goals. A loan from me wouldn't solve the underlying issue. I offered an alternative to help review their finances, create a realistic budget, and develop a savings plan that would allow them to afford their down payment within a year or two. I even offered to introduce them to a mortgage broker who specialized in first-time homebuyers. Aaron was not receptive. His face flushed as he accused me of being selfish, holding grudges, and forgetting family obligations. When these accusations didn't move me, he resorted to threats. "Dad will be furious when he hears about this," he said. "You know hell take my side." "I'm sure he will," I acknowledged without emotion. "That doesn't change my decision." As our meeting concluded, Aaron stormed out, leaving his half-finished expensive coffee behind. I remained at the table experiencing not satisfaction, but a quiet certainty that I had made the right choice. This wasn't about denying help, it was about offering the right kind of help even when unwanted. As expected, my father called that evening, his voice tight with disapproval. He demanded an explanation for my refusal to support Aaron, dismissing my concerns about financial responsibility as excuses. When I calmly described my own experience with homelessness and the family's absence, he grew defensive. "The past is the past, Hubert," he insisted. "Family helps family." I agreed with this principle, but questioned why it had only applied to me helping others, never others helping me. The conversation ended with my father threatening to reconsider my role in the family if I didn't change my mind. I accepted this possibility with a tranquility that would have been impossible years earlier. Lisa was entirely supportive, holding me through the complex emotions that followed. While I remained confident in my decision, the fracturing of already fragile family bonds still brought grief. We spent that evening talking about family patterns, the nature of genuine support, and the difficult balance between compassion and enabling harmful behaviors. 6 months passed without contact from Aaron or my father. I sent birthday cards to both, maintaining my practice of basic family courtesy, but received no acknowledgement. Life continued its productive rhythm: business growth, wedding planning with Lisa, weekend hiking trips with our expanding circle of friends. The call, when it finally came, surprised me. Aaron's name on my phone screen late on a Tuesday evening sparked both curiosity and caution. I answered with neutral greeting, unsure what to expect. "Hey," Aaron said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" The conversation that followed marked a shift I hadn't anticipated. Aaron spoke haltingly about the months since our coffee shop meeting. After my refusal, he and Melanie had argued intensely about their financial priorities. The conflict prompted them to actually examine their spending habits for the first time. "We were spending almost everything we made," he admitted. "Designer clothes, restaurants 4 nights a week, vacations we couldn't afford. We were drowning in payments for things we didn't need." They had ultimately sold the Tesla, moved to a less expensive apartment, and created their first ever budget. They'd adjusted their house expectations dramatically, now saving for a modest starter home in a developing neighborhood. Most surprisingly, Aaron had begun seeing a therapist to address his relationship with money and status. "I've been thinking about what you said," he continued, "about how no one was there for you when you needed help. I was wrong, Hubert. I was selfish and entitled, and I'm sorry." The apology, unexpected and seemingly genuine, momentarily left me speechless. When I found my voice, I thanked him for his honesty. We agreed to meet for dinner the following week, a real conversation, not a transaction. That dinner became the first of many regular meetings. Our relationship rebuilt slowly, with occasional setbacks when old patterns emerged. Aaron shared insights from his therapy about how our childhood had affected us differently, his entitlement and my self-reliance both stemming from the same parental dynamic. We discussed our father and Stephanie, their continued favoritism, and how to establish healthier boundaries with them. Over the following year, I helped Aaron develop financial literacy skills I'd learned through necessity. I introduced him to investment basics and emergency fund planning, rather than giving him money directly. When he and Melanie eventually found a home within their actual budget, I attended their housewarming party, bringing a gift of practical household tools rather than luxury items. My father remained distant initially, but as he observed the improving relationship between his sons, he made tentative efforts to reconnect. Our conversations remained somewhat superficial, but the overt hostility had dissipated. Some wounds were too deep for complete healing, but we found a workable peace. The journey from homelessness to stability had taught me lessons no other experience could. I learned the irreplaceable value of self-reliance and the critical importance of building your own safety net. I discovered who would stand beside me in darkness and who would vanish at the first shadow. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes genuine help means refusing to enable harmful patterns, even when that refusal comes at a relationship cost. Today, 5 years after my brother's initial request, I'm a different person than I was during those desperate months living in my car. The experience shaped me, but it no longer defines me. The pain has transformed into wisdom that guides my decisions about money, relationships, and priorities. I've built a life centered on security, meaningful work, and authentic connections rather than appearances or obligations. If there's one thing I would share with anyone facing similar family dynamics or financial crises, it's this: your worth isn't determined by others' willingness to help you in hard times. The people who abandon you when you're struggling reveal their character, not yours. Build your life with those who value you consistently, not conditionally. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision about helping family members financially? Did you choose to help or establish boundaries instead? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set healthy boundaries even with those closest to you. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you wisdom in navigating your own family relationships.